My name is Sarah, and I've been sober for 4.5 years. I never had like a serious attempt, I would say, before my 4.5 years ago. Like I would take breaks, like I would try to do like dry January, or I would try to do 30 days, or I would try to do, and like I never made it. Like I've never made it through dry January. I never made it through a 30 days. Like I would last until somebody asked me to go to happy hour. Like that was as long as I would last. So if I had the ask and the temptation, I certainly just went. And I think that was like part of realizing what a problem it was. Because I wasn't an everyday drinker. It was just the way that I drank. That to me is what like tells me that there was a problem. But yeah, so that was my first serious attempt, and I'm glad it stuck because I definitely was not taking it seriously before that. I think the biggest challenge that I did face in early sobriety was staying present. I think that was really difficult for me. It's very easy to want to rush your early sobriety and like just get to the next day. But really, like all you can do is take it one day at a time. So like the way that I got through it was just like, I can get through the next hour. And that's all I did. I was just thinking about how am I going to get to the next hour? Like, how do I stay sober for one more hour? And then after giving that some patience, like hours turned into weeks, and that turned into months. And then now I'm here with years. But I think like being present was really hard because it's super uncomfortable. So I think what also came with that, like what I would say was the second hardest thing, was just being comfortable with very uncomfortable emotions because you're present. You have to force yourself to sit and stay with them. And it can be really just like icky, and it can feel really sad. But there's something to be said about being able to sit with it when you don't have like your number one coping mechanism. Like for me, drinking was how I dealt with uncomfortable feelings. So not having that crutch anymore was really, really hard. So I think being comfortable being present with uncomfortable feelings, those were definitely the hardest things to do. But it's like taught me a lot. Like I'm glad that those were the things I had the most difficulty with, because like they allow me to stay like where I am now. I am sure that I had many moments where I knew that subconsciously, but did not actually take the time to admit that I am powerless over my addiction, I am powerless over alcohol, whatever it might be, until the day that I took it seriously and stopped drinking. Like I didn't have this massive, like transformative, like turning point moment. It was just like another morning of waking up after just like purposely blacking out and like doing drugs with strangers, and waking up and like I walked into my bathroom and I like looked at my mirror, and I explain this, every time I talk about it, but I just had like no clue who the person was that was like looking at me. Like in my head, I was like, I don't know her, but I also was like, I know her so deeply. And I think for me, there is nothing that feels more powerless than something like stripping you of your identity, or like dissociating you from your identity. So I think that moment for me was like the actual moment of me admitting I don't have control over this. Like I am not stronger than it. Like I'm never going to be able to moderate it. But it was because I felt so disconnected from like my reflection, and all I wanted was to be able to like look in the mirror and be happy for that person and feel like she was doing her best. And I certainly did not feel any of those things at all then. But yeah, that was like the moment that I would, I think, attach to realizing I was very powerless over my addiction. I think the way that I stay committed to staying sober, especially in social settings, is I am so aware, and I can never not be aware of the fact that that is the only choice that I have. Like I am not a person, I know there's some people that can, I was never a person, I'll never be a person that can have one drink, like one turns into 5 to 7 to me being back in the bathroom with a stranger doing whatever drugs the person has. Like, it's just, I know exactly what that looks like if I give into any type of social pressure. Like, I don't have the luxury of it being like, oops, like that was a mistake and I'll just get back on track the next day. Like, I think because I so deeply know that if I did fall out, like it would be so impossible to get out from under that wave. Like, I just wouldn't make it back out. And I think that's what keeps me sober, because I don't want to lose the life that I have now. And like, that's enough to keep me just like having a seltzer when I'm at the bar when friends are, doing their thing. So yeah, I'm very lucky that a lot of my friends reacted to my sobriety with like, oh my God, thank God. Like, this is good. Like, I did not have any, with my true friends, I had no struggles with finding support from them. My family especially has been beyond supportive. Like, a good example of how they've been supportive of my sobriety is anytime I'm home for a family event, or if I'm just seeing them for like a dinner, they're trying to find places that have like mocktails, or one of my sisters will offer to not drink with me for the week that I'm home for Christmas or something like that. And it seems like such a small action, but it's so meaningful when you have somebody who is not sober that really makes an effort to support what's important to you. Because there's plenty of people that, will verbally tell you they're supporting you, but then they're, blacked out within 2 hours of, meeting up with them. So there's like a big difference, I think, because obviously the support of sober people is like absolutely irreplaceable. But I think that what's been so meaningful to me is like having family like that that's been able to offer to also not drink. Or I just went on a really long trip with a friend and she just didn't drink the whole time because I wasn't drinking, and it was just like the sweetest thing. And like, she knows I wouldn't care if she did, but to have somebody that, even though they know that it wouldn't bother you, they still go out of their way to make you comfortable, I think is just so meaningful. And it's a deeper support than I think I was expecting when I first got sober. I think the way that it impacted my physical and mental health when I was drinking was, it obviously was a negative impact. And I was ignorant of the impact it was having. Like, I would have never been able to say to you when I was in active addiction that drinking was what was making me feel really crappy when I would wake up in the morning. I would deny that that was what was making me more depressed. Like, I would lie through my teeth about how alcohol was impacting those things. I think the weird thing about like my physical fitness during when I was drinking is that's probably like the most like cardio I've ever done in my life. Like, I was constantly like running or walking or going to some like ridiculous workout class, because in my head that was, that gave you the reward of, okay, well, you can drink, like you can have like those calories, you can have what you're going to eat after that because you did this. But obviously none of that stuff sticks when you're drinking. And I think that's super important with the mental health part of it. Like, I have been on like every medicine under the sun for like anxiety, depression, PTSD, and none of it, I never gave it a chance to work because I was drinking. So I often wonder, like, was that really necessary? Did I need to try so many things? But I wasn't giving any medicine a chance of having a single shot when I was drinking. And I also was giving therapy nothing. Like, I was in therapy the whole time I was in active addiction, and I was learning all of these coping skills, and I would just toss them to the wind because I was like, well, it's just easier. It's easier to drink. I would rather do that than journal or sit with my feelings or talk to somebody. So I think that's how drinking impacted both of those things. And then sobriety, obviously, my relationship with my physical health is so different. Like, I make doctor's appointments. I make sure that I like do things that I need to do on an annual basis. It's those very little things that have changed for me. And it's like, I found a way of working out that actually is enjoyable. And I'm not just trying to make up for drinking. Like I'm doing things that I like doing because I want to do them and I'm healthy enough to do them. But I definitely physically obviously feel 1,000 times better. Like I'm awake, I'm alert, I'm never hungover. Like that's the best thing in the entire world, never being hungover. It's a gift. And my mental health is so much better. And I never would have thought that that would have gotten better. I think my initial impression was if I stop drinking, this is going to get 1,000 times worse because I lose that tool that I had to make it a little easier. But it's like I still have all of those things that I mentioned. I still struggle with anxiety and depression, but I can sit through it and like I can find my way out of it because I'm sober and I don't exacerbate it anymore. Like drinking makes your anxiety 1,000 times worse. Like I mean, like time and time again, you hear of people having anxiety or they have like Sunday scaries or whatever it is. And it's because they were drinking. It amplifies that so much. So I think that while yes, like those things all still exist for me and like it is still hard sometimes mental health wise, like the volume is turned down so much on it because I don't have alcohol like turning it up to max basically. The deepest thing that drinking impacted in my personal and professional life was just my ability to show up for people, like events, places, things. Like I was never fully there, even if I was physically there. Like work is such a good example. I'm somebody that I never lost my job because of drinking, but I also worked in an environment that everybody was drinking and everybody was doing drugs. Like it wasn't an uncommon thing. So it was really easy to hide how much I was actually struggling. So while I am fortunate enough that that didn't bite me, I was not nearly as good at my job as I am now. And I didn't really care. I think that's the other thing is it's affected obviously my presence and ability to show up for people, but also I care now. Like I care about how my actions impact a friend of mine. I care about how they impact my husband. I care about how they impact my coworker. Like it doesn't matter who the person is. If I have a relationship with them, I just care a lot more than I used to. And I think that's only impacted my personal and professional life for the better. Like I have stronger relationships. I've gotten rid of relationships that were toxic or based in drinking. Like that's a huge lesson that came with that personal professional life changes. Some people just really were never your actual friend. So it's like a hard lesson to learn, but it has been like extremely helpful. But yeah, I think the biggest change in both of those areas is just my ability to have an actual meaningful relationship because that did not exist. It was very surface level, but now I feel people know me and I want them to know me and I know them. Like I can show up for them. If somebody needs me, I can always show up because I don't need to flake. I'm not drinking. I am always sober, so I can be there for the person. So in both like a emotional and a literal sense, I can just be a better, person on the other side of the relationship. My aspirations now are to just like stay sober. It's so simple. I don't have any crazy like aspirations or dreams. I feel like I'm so happy with what I have. In early sobriety, I wanted a bunch of things that I don't want anymore. Like I thought I needed, I don't know, like a higher paying job, like a better relationship, more money. It's like you want so many material things, I think, in early sobriety, and you think that's what's going to get you them. But the things that I've realized I actually want and want to keep are super simple. Like I think probably, yeah, it's like simple, like having an apartment in a neighborhood that I really love and having friends that still call me and want to see me. Those are the things to me that are still like aspirational. And I want to keep them. So I think for me, it's just keeping what I have. That's super important to me. I think that whatever else will come with that, I'm sure will be great. But I think the most important thing to me is just acting the same way as I do now, because that's only going to lead to me realizing more things that I actually like needed and appreciate. In my head, I feel very dramatic saying I would have like a near-death experience drinking alcohol. But when I think about it, like actually think about your question, like there were multiple times I was hospitalized because of alcohol poisoning, or because I had fallen down a flight of stairs and had a concussion, or because I like blacked out and fell asleep in like an Uber or a car of someone I didn't know. It's like I put myself in dangerous situations constantly. And like, sure, like I'm sure one of those like hospitalizations or something could have led to something that was like closer to death. But I think all of those things, like I can now say that that was so dangerous. Like I wouldn't have been able to, I didn't realize that then. Like I was not waking up in the hospital and being like, oh, you're so stupid. I was just like, I just want to get out of here so I can drink, you know? But now I can look back on it and see the just like lack of safety that existed in my life because of the drinking. I don't think my past self would have, if I would go and tell her now, like, you're going to be sober for 4.5 years and you're going to want to be sober for that long and you're going to want to be sober longer. I think that that person would have been like, that's such a nice, hopeful dream. Like, I think that she would see that as a like cute, but I don't think she would believe it. I think my early sobriety self would have believed it because like she knew that she could do it. But I think if I spoke to that person now and would say, this is what you're going to have in 5 years, I don't think that she would see that for herself, because I don't think that person thought she deserved what I have now also. So I think it felt obviously physically impossible to rip myself away from alcohol. But I also think that I probably could not envision the life that I have now because I didn't think I deserved to have it.